how many people live in your house? Like, tell us about the house and like kind of what goes on. Because, this could be, I feel like multi-generational can mean many things. When I was looking up the term, it's like, it could be like an aunt and uncle live it with you. It could be just grandparents. It could be children, so kind of tell us a little bit about what goes on at home.
Sure. So the house is my parents. So my mom and my dad live here, my younger sister. And 2 years ago, my husband, myself, and my daughter, we now live there. And then over this summer, my older sister and her husband and her daughter, they live here now. So that makes 9 of us. And then we have 1 on the way. So that will be 10.
Hi guys, I'm your host Megan Van Dievender, and this is the Empowerhood podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. Motherhood is hard, and we are going to talk about all of the hard things that just are not talked about enough. So buckle up and enjoy this episode. And I appreciate it. I really do. So thanks so much for being here. Everyone out there listening today, we have Kramer here. And Kara, I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic today because it's so funny. It comes up almost in every episode about how, like 80% of the world raises their children in like communities, in villages. And, here in America, we just don't do that. And we have this mentality that we have to do it ourselves. So I'm just so excited to just pick your brain of just what it's like to live in a multi-generational household and whatnot. So I'm really excited. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about you? Who is Kara?
Okay, so I'm a wife. I've been married for 5 years, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. My daughter is 2. And then we have 1 on the way. We're down to just, like 5 weeks until he'll be here. So it's coming really quickly. And then I also am a small business owner and a former teacher. So
nice. Do you still work at the preschool?
No, I actually had to stop because I got so sick during my pregnancy.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your business. When did you start your business and what is it?
Yeah, so my business is called Kara Shop of Pretty Things, and I make handmade pretty things that for every occasion. So I mainly do earrings, but I do a ton of personalized and customized, items and gifts. But I started that when I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. I was struggling with a pretty heavy case of postpartum, depression, anxiety. And my daughter was 6 months at the time, and it was just time for me to be done working and to be at home. And I realized I was like, oh, I'm going to need some sort of outlet, so I don't go crazy all day.
Yeah.
And so I was talking on the phone with my mother-in-law and her friend was like, oh, you should make earrings. And I'm like, okay, cool, why not? And that's how it started.
Wow, that's amazing. Because, people can't see this obviously while they're listening, but your earrings are incredible and you make a lot of them. And it's crazy that you do it all on your own. I've seen you do big expos and whatnot, and it's pretty amazing. And that's grown pretty quickly, right? Within the past 2 years.
Yeah, I've only been doing this for just at 1.5 years, maybe. So
wow.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
Wow, that's awesome. So when you became a mom, what kind of pushed you towards leaving your job and wanting to stay home? Is that what you always wanted to do, or?
So I did always in my head, as I pictured my adult life, I did always want to be a stay-at-home mom. I grew up with a stay-at-home mom, and I really saw the benefit in that, and I felt it. I felt the benefit of having a stay-at-home mom. And so if it was something that was going to be feasible for my family, it was something that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Although I also felt like at the time, I felt like I had to work. And so I did. And I think part of it was I went back too early. I was only 8 weeks postpartum.
Oh, wow.
Started a brand new job. I just moved here to upstate New York. So there was just a lot of change happening.
Okay.
So when it was time, it was just a very natural flow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you, so when you got married, you weren't living here, so you weren't living in New York. So were you close with your family then, or where were you located?
Yep. So I was in Orlando, Florida, and my parents were also there, and my younger sister. We actually lived about 10 minutes apart. Um, my family and I have always been pretty close, especially my mom and me. We were pretty much attached at the hip. And like to the point that like when I went off to college, which I went to a school in Nebraska, everybody asked my mom, like, so are you buying a house there and moving too? Because Kara's leaving. And when they, decided to move up here, everybody asked me, are you moving? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to New York. That's crazy.
And here you are.
Here I am.
How long? So was it when you were pregnant? Is that when you decided to move, or what made you guys want to move?
Yeah, so I had kind of been feeling like, okay, maybe our time might be coming to an end in Florida, but I wasn't really sure why I felt like that because I really loved everything. Like I loved my job. I was in a great community. We had a great church, great friends, all of that. So I wasn't looking to leave. And then when we found out we were pregnant, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And because my family was up here in New York and my husband's family lives in a teeny tiny town in the middle of Nebraska. So we wouldn't have had anyone close and we wanted to raise our family near family.
That's awesome. No, I mean, I know we talked about this kind of a little bit before, but so did you always plan to move in with your mom and your stepdad? No.
Not at all.
Okay, so you just were like,
No.
I want to be close to you. It wasn't like I want to be in the same house. Okay.
I really never imagined, like after getting married, living with my family ever again. Partially because I am independent and I like to be independent, like I like to do things on my own and whatever. And, but also I feel like, especially in America, it's very frowned upon, like whenever somebody's like, oh, I live with my parents, there's always that negative, like, ooh, you live with your parents.
Yeah.
But God just made it really clear, like, this is how it's supposed to be, even though I didn't want that necessarily. Like, I wanted to be close, but I didn't want to be in the same house.
Yeah.
But it's been great.
That's awesome. So how many people live in your house? Like, tell us about the house and like kind of what goes on. Because, this could be, I feel like multi-generational can mean many things. When I was looking up the term, it's like, it could be like an aunt and uncle live it with you. It could be just grandparents. It could be children, so kind of tell us a little bit about what goes on at home.
Sure. So the house is my parents. So my mom and my dad live here. My younger sister. And 2 years ago, my husband, myself, and my daughter, we now live there. And then over this summer, my older sister and her husband and her daughter, they live here now. So that makes 9 of us. And then we have 1 on the way. So that will be 10.
Yeah. Wow. I know, like when your mom first told me that everyone's living there, I was like, how big is this house? But it is big. So and it's crazy to me that your parents, when they moved here, they didn't know that you guys were going to move here. And I just think it's so incredible that like God kind of guided them to buy this huge house that they didn't really need. And somehow it just all worked out that you guys ended up wanting to move here. It's crazy.
Yeah, they actually tried to downsize because when they moved, it was just 3 and the dog. And so they were looking for a small home and God had other plans.
Yeah. That's wild. So what is it like in the house? Tell us about it. Like, is it, chaotic? Is it peaceful? Like, what have you had to do to adjust to living like this, I guess?
Yeah. I think it kind of depends. It's on the day. Having a toddler in the house, it's kind of always some sort of a little bit crazy. Just, I feel like that comes with the territory. But as far as having so many people in the house, it's definitely an adjustment at first. It was just my husband and me. And then we welcomed our daughter and then also had, 3 other people in the house at the same time. But really, I feel like personally, the hardest part about all 9 of us living together is trying to figure out like when we can use water and that kind of, because like we can't all take a shower at the same time.
Right.
Or like if somebody's taking a shower and we need to wash clothes or that kind of, like little things.
Little things.
Or when we need to make dinner, there's only one kitchen. So even though we all
Right.
have our separate spaces, so we can kind of get away when we need a break,
Mm-hmm.
when it's time to make food, we're all, in each other's way.
Now, do you guys eat together, or do you eat separate
We're
meals,
all on
or
different, yeah, pretty much separate. Just we're all on different schedules, so we kind of just eat, I don't know, like
whenever?
as everyone can. Yeah.
Right, right. Now, like, what were some of the biggest adjustments, like, when you first moved in with your parents? Like, what did you have to change, like, mentality wise? Because, like you said, in America, it's like, it's kind of just has this stigma around it that, like, something's wrong if you're living with your parents, after a certain age.
Sure, yeah. So personally, I think a lot of it for me was just like letting go of my ego. Um, like if this is really what God wants for me and
Mm-hmm.
my family, he will make it so known. And so I was just really praying over that clarity because I'm like, I don't want to not do this because I don't want, like other people's opinion to
Mm-hmm.
like make my decision. And so the more I prayed about it and the more I thought about it, I was like, man, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So really once I just stopped caring like about what somebody might think, like when I tell them, oh, I live with my parents, as a married woman, as a mom,
Yeah.
um, it's been great.
That's amazing. Now, were you able to kind of like utilize the resources that you had like right away? Because how soon after did you have Colette, when you moved in with your
Hmm.
parents?
2 months.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. So you moved at 8 months
Yeah.
pregnant?
Oh
Wow.
gosh. Don't 0 out of 10 recommended. Don't do that.
Oh my God. Oh, that's hilarious. So you kind of just got like thrown into it and you probably had to ask for help, right? Because you said that you struggled with postpartum depression. So like what happened in that time?
So it really started out, long story short, I had a really traumatic hospital experience, like when we were in the hospital with Colette. And so I think a lot of that played into my postpartum struggles. Um, and the first week of Colette's life and the first week of my recovery, I was bedridden. Like I truly could not do anything. I barely even remember it. And
Wow.
so I didn't really have a choice. Like I didn't even ask for help. I
Mm,
needed help, and so
yeah.
being in the house where my mom, my family already was and was huge because there's no way we could have done that on our own.
Right.
And Paul, my husband, he was so helpful, but he was also really nervous, first time dad. He had
Yeah.
never held a baby before,
Right.
like we had our own. And so like that would have been really overwhelming for him to try to navigate like what's going on with me and then also having this newborn that he, doesn't
Right.
really know like what am I supposed to do? So,
Crazy. I mean, I feel
yeah.
like that really goes to show too that God really was like guiding you in the right direction. Now, what happened at the hospital and like why did you have such a struggle after? Like what happened?
So it kind of just one thing after another, but it started out so Colette was breech, which we knew she was breech, and so we ended up having a scheduled C-section due to her position. And after the C-section, I ended up with one of the spinal headaches from the anesthesia.
Oh, wow.
Um, However, I was refused care at the hospital. So they didn't help me and give me what I needed to get better because there's only one solution when you have a spinal headache, which is a blood patch. And instead of doing that, they put me on pain meds, which took them what felt like a million years to get to me. And
Wow.
just it was kind of one thing after another. Like the lactation consultant, she also refused to help me. It was a Friday evening. She wanted to clock out and go home. And then I ended up having a bunch of, issues nursing and I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. And we had an issue with the fire alarms. The fire alarms went off and we
Oh
didn't
my
know like is
goodness.
something happening? Is it not happening? And there was nobody on the hall. Like everybody had left. Like all the nurses were gone. People were outside the window in the parking lot like they had evacuated, but they didn't get us. So we didn't know like are we in danger? Are we not in
Oh my
danger? And it just
goodness.
like just kept happening.
Wow. So yeah, to say that's like stressful after just having like a surgery too, that's
Mhm.
crazy. So you being bedridden, did that have to do with, obviously the stress and you had to recover, but was it the headache that was keeping you?
Yeah,
Okay. And I
the
assume
pain was
PedMan,
so severe.
wow. Yeah, I've never heard of
Hmm.
that. So a spinal headache. Okay. And that
Hmm.
has to do with the anesthesia.
Hmm.
Okay. Have you always had issues with anesthesia, or was this the first time you've ever?
It was my first time.
Hmm.
Um, my mom has issues with anesthesia, but
Hmm.
she's never had a spinal headache before. I mean, but she never had a C-section, so she wouldn't have had that experience. But
Right.
so I don't know. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
a genetic thing, but according to my OB, like it's pretty much a fluke of like who's gonna get them and who's not. Like you can't
Wow.
predict it. So I was just lucky, I guess.
Oh, I don't know if I would call it luck, but
No.
well, you're lucky that you had your family though, because everyone swooped in, everyone helped.
Yeah.
Um, that's amazing. 'Cause, yeah, I'm sure Paul would have had a hard time, doing that all on his own while you recovered.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the start, right? The start of,
Yeah.
accepting help and like really raising your child around so many people. Now, do you feel like everyone kind of pitches in and helps raise her?
I do. Even, you know, in the newborn days when we're all exhausted and nobody's sleeping, um, there were a lot of extra hands. And so there were times when we would be like, we've been trying to get her to sleep for 3 hours or, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And somebody was there to be able to just like give us a break, hold her, walk her around the
Yeah.
house, whatever it was that needed to happen. Or even like, you know, I just need to take a shower,
Right.
and
Right. Yeah,
so
I know how that
there was
is.
somebody who could give me the 10, 15, whatever minutes I needed, to just take a shower and have a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as she gets older, I mean, now she's 2, right? So, like, I feel like when I read stories about like kids being raised in communities, I think a lot of it is like, so they say the kids are out running around, playing, and like something happens. Someone's always there to direct them
Hmm.
in the right direction to make a good choice or to guide them in the right direction. Do you feel like your family would be on the same page with like your parenting, as she gets older?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely all have like our own boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
just in general. Like when
Mm-hmm.
you live with so many people, it's really important to have boundaries, period, to make it work. And, they respect how Paul and I choose to parent
Mm-hmm.
our family. And so I know that like they wouldn't do something to like contradict what we're
Right.
working on or something like that. So, yeah, I do feel like it is helpful, to have other people because I mean, realistically, a 2-year-old, geez, they move so fast. There are
Yeah.
times I like turn my head and she's not even in the room anymore. I'm like,
Right.
wait,
Right. And you're about to have another
so
baby.
yeah.
Well, and yeah, and speaking of help, I mean, you've had the condition. You're gonna have to say it for me. How do you say it?
Hmm. It's called hyperemesis gravidarum, which it's just called HG for short.
Okay. So you had that with both of your pregnancies, right? You tell us a little about
Hmm.
this. What happens?
So basically, HG is a really severe form of nausea and or vomiting, and it's pretty much when morning sickness is more than morning sickness.
Hmm.
Um, Everybody is affected by it differently. Only 3% of pregnant women are actually diagnosed with it,
Wow.
and 20, like out of that 3%, 80% of them typically you feel relief around 20 weeks, which with Colette, I was lucky to be in that 80%. And so I had a really hard, first half of pregnancy, dropped 20 pounds.
Wow.
It was really hard to work full time. I was teaching elementary school. Um,
Wow.
and I wasn't, really eating much because I was so sick all the time. But this time I got sick earlier and I got a lot more sick. And so even today, like I was feeling really nauseous earlier.
Oh my
And
God.
I'm 34 weeks.
Wow.
And so, yeah, this time I dropped the 20 pounds. But there were days when I cracker.
Wow.
Um,
You said you couldn't even eat a
and
cracker.
Yeah. And
Wow.
like over the course of a day. And there are medications that the doctors can put you on, and they changed my medications probably 5 to 7 times. And
Oh my
sometimes they
God.
helped me like enough to get off the couch, and other times it was just not not
Yeah.
at all.
Oh my God.
So
So again, going back to having this village and support system, so
right.
everyone kind of just came together and helped you.
Yeah, it was, I honestly don't know how I would have done it or we would have done it. Like getting as sick as I do while pregnant. I am a stay-at-home mom, so it's not like I was missing work. But if it was just Paul Collette and me, he would have had to stay home from his job because
Right. You couldn't
there were
watch it.
days when, yeah, many days when I could not get off the couch. And, having a toddler, that's really not an option.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, juggling around all of our schedules, there'd be times when my mom is a life coach, and so she has her own sessions and stuff, but like in between her sessions or before, like she could help me with Colette for, a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And my younger sister is at home, and so she helped out a lot. And so it was really a huge blessing
Wow.
to have so many people.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I feel like going into this, next delivery too, having your second child, like you're going to have, this built in, care system too. So, like, I guess I love how you guys do this. I mean, I would never. I feel like you have to have some type of family dynamic where you'd be able to pull this off, and you guys have it. Because, like, my mom would just feed my daughter chocolate, I feel like, all day. I don't know, like, what I would do. She's wonderful, but, like, I can't imagine living in the same house with her with my child. Obviously, I grew up living with my parents.
Right.
So, like, what would you suggest, and, like, how do we create our village without, like, moving in with our whole entire family?
Yeah, I mean, for some people, family isn't a village, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And so whoever it is, whether it's your friends, your coworkers, your church, whoever,
Mm-hmm.
like find your village and use them because like everybody says it takes a village to raise a child. That like I knew like, oh, it's gonna be hard to be a mom or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but man, that meaning or that saying has way more meaning than I ever expected it to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it really has taken, like my village to help raise my family.
Yeah.
And yeah, so definitely find your people and use them
And
because
actually
that's
ask for
what they're
help.
there
I mean,
for.
I think that's
Right,
like the
like that's
hardest
what they're
part.
there for.
And
Hmm.
I know you've said this to me before too, like just like in America, you know, as women especially, I feel like we're set up to have to do this on our own, or we think we have to. Like if we do ask for help, we're looked on as weak. I just think it's so hard for us to make that like initial step. But I do truly believe that people really want to help you, right? Like, I mean, if you just ask,
Yeah,
like you said, like church or friends or anyone, like they want to help you. You just either have to ask or be open to receiving the help too,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
So,
I definitely agree.
yeah. And I think that's from parents too. Like, I mean, I really didn't even let my mom help me, when my daughter was little. I just was like, I need to show them that I can do this myself. But it's like, who am I trying, like, what am I trying to prove here? Right? Like
Hmm.
we're not here to be heroes, right? We're here to keep our baby safe, raise them to thrive, and be able to survive ourselves, right? But it doesn't
Exactly.
mean that you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's like one of the hardest things like for you to like ask for help for, like with living with your family?
I think now, like now that I've been here, like, for a little while, it's different. Definitely in the beginning, just the act of asking for help
Mm-hmm.
was really hard for me, because I do like to do things on my own. And I think I did see asking for help as, a little bit of a weakness, like I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be like, no, I'm capable, I got it. Um, but realistically, like we're not meant to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have my husband and he's amazing and he was
Mm-hmm.
so helpful. But there were definitely times when I had to be very specific about what I needed help with. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, not just like, hey, I need help, I'm overwhelmed, but, you know, or like for Paul, for example, like when you come home from work and after you eat dinner, if you can, take care of Colette so I can go take a shower, that would be super helpful to me. Um, or going, like if I have errands to run, that would be, maybe challenging to have my daughter with me, like being able to like ask for help, like from my mom or from my sister or somebody who's here during the day. Like, hey, can you watch her for, 30 minutes while I go do this? And so now I'm, more comfortable in doing so. And also it goes, both ways. Like they're comfortable telling me no. Which is important, because it's like, I don't want them to feel like they have to, because I mean, Colette is not their child. Like she's my responsibility. But if I do need help, like they do really step in and help.
That's awesome. And I think that's truly like a balance, right? You guys all have your boundaries. You're not going to like, burn each other out, with asking for help and whatnot. You all are okay saying no. And I think we really do kind of get in our own way when it comes to like asking for help, because I think if you do specify exactly what you need, I always say this, like people can't read your mind, right? Like even if you're like frazzled and exhausted, people can't read your mind that you want to accept help and that you really need someone to step in and like do something for you. And I really think like voicing, step by step what I need you to do. Because my husband would say to me the same thing. Like if I don't say it in like detail, he's not just going to magically know, what I need. Women I feel like are very intuitive like that. Like, but for my husband, it's just like, or men in general, it's just not that way. And he's super, super helpful. Don't get me wrong. But I just need to be like, I need your help this day at this time. Can you do this for me? And then it's like, it's not even a thing. It's just like there. And and I think being honest too, and being like, no, I can't that day, but I'm happy to help in some other way, or I can move something around, or just being, honest about it. To communication, right? I mean, that's like life, but communicating with your help. And I always like to say too, it's like a partnership, and you have like a whole family unit partnership over there, which is even cooler. And I think it's just so incredible. Now, where do you see yourself staying in your family's house?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, in my head, I always pictured having my own house, like, like when I get married and have my own family, have my family, have my own house, all of that. At this point, I'm pretty just open to whatever happens. I don't want to sit here and plan out, all of these things and then it not happen either, so it's like, I am comfortable with where we're at, whether it's a long-term thing. I don't know. We've talked briefly about like, maybe one day this house would become, mine and my husband's. And as my parents got older, like they would live here, that kind of thing, just kind of like trade off by the house from them. Something like that. Or who knows, maybe we all move out,
Right. Yeah. Cause your dad moved here for work, right? So if he changed jobs or something like that, yeah, I mean, I guess really the sky's the limit. I mean, it's like I do know people though that have their grandparents that live with them, for life, right? It's like, it's just a part of their culture, and the grandparents are there and they live there through their whole entire life, and they have that support and be, availability to be with their grandparents, which is, I think, just so cool to have that, different perspective on life. My daughter sees her grandparents, like every 3 months, it's not like they live close by or anything. So I think that's really cool. And to see the dynamic of like how you treat your parents in front of your child, I always find that really, really cool. Now, as far as, having more children, like what's your plan, or like for your business, what are you planning, Kara?
So growing up, I always just wanted to be a mom and a teacher. And I taught for 5 years, which was wonderful. I'm doing the mom thing. I always wanted to have, 4 kids or, like whatever I could afford, that kind of thing. But after getting as sick as I do, I have no idea, and because realistically, especially this time, like being as sick as I was and not being able to take care of Colette, well,
Yeah.
if we have another, well, now it's not just Colette, it would be Colette and,
Yeah.
and one more.
Yeah.
Um, so at this point, I do think that like we would like to have one more. I'd like to have all my kids by 30. I've always said that just because then,
You're
like
so
have
young.
them while I'm young,
Yeah.
have them while I'm young, my body can, hopefully do its best in recovery and all of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like being as sick as I am, it's really hard to say like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna
Yeah.
do.
Well, and you're also in the end of your pregnancy. It's hard to like be like, yeah, I want to have more children when you're like about to deliver a baby. I feel like it's hard to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. It definitely would not be like anytime soon. Like I feel like I just need to recover from
Oh my God,
HG and all of
absolutely.
that. Because they say it takes like for every month you are sick with HG, it takes two to recover.
Oh my
Um,
God.
so yeah, definitely not trying to rush that.
Yeah. Well, and just joy the baby and Colette too. I mean, she's at such a
Yeah.
cute age. Yeah. Now, what are your plans for your business?
Yeah, sure. So right now, I mean, it's a part-time. I pretty much just work on it when Colette takes her nap.
Yeah.
And then on some weekends I do, like the Troy Farmers Market
Yeah.
or like a couple other, vendor events and expos, which is super fun. Um, I don't have like a set timeline for anything, but I think ultimately my goal would be to have my own vendor store.
Yeah.
So then I could have not only a storefront for my things, but then also, other small businesses and other people, like they could have their things in a storefront as well.
Yeah.
And I just think like, I don't know, I think they're like a really great opportunity for a lot of people. And anyone with a small business is all about supporting small businesses. And so, like, what better way to
Absolutely.
support each other? Um,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
that. That's awesome. Um, and like, I mean, just coming from this place of openness that you have, right? Like, is that like advice that you would give to women out there? Because it's like this was not in the plan at all. It's like, what's that saying? Like, you plan and God laughs, and it's like this is what
Right.
happens. Like, what advice could you give to women out there today on going into like asking for help or utilizing their
Yeah.
family?
I mean, definitely being open to change of plans makes everything a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I learned that lesson really early. Like in high school, I think I learned the lesson of like, oh, you're going to sit here and make all these plans, but they're not going to go the way that I wanted them to go or expected them to go. And so
Yeah.
once I kind of let go of that, like, yes, I do still plan things.
Right.
But I'm also like, I try to be more like realistic and logical as I plan. Like, okay, this is what I'm hoping for, but it could look completely different.
Right.
Um, so definitely being open, if you like being open to change
Yeah.
versus like letting change scare you, because I think change is scary for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like is mentally very freeing and then just
Yeah.
makes everything so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I agree. I think, well, I mean, change is hard for everyone, right? But just being open to be able to, maybe have your plan, but be able to pivot, right? Like if something doesn't
Right.
go your way, just like be able to problem solve and kind of like accept it for what it is and make the best of the situation and know that there is a plan in place, right? Like somehow you are where you're meant to be, right? Like I mean, like you said, you
Yeah.
never thought you'd be living with your mom, your dad, your sisters,
Yeah.
and your niece, and
Everyone.
right, literally everyone, right? Is anybody missing? No, your brother. Your brother's
And
missing.
my brother
Oh my
and
God, so
his
he could
wife,
move in
yeah.
too. Where does he
He
live?
could. He's in the army, so he's actually overseas right now.
Okay,
They're stationed in Europe, but
okay. I forgot about your
but
brother. So yeah,
yeah,
there's
I
one
mean,
more. One more.
who knows?
The sky's the limit with your family. I love it. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here and just speaking about this because I think it's huge and just to help people be able to be open to these things that might seem like impossible but could actually happen, especially in the United States. Where can we find you, Kara?
Yeah, so You can find me on social media. I like my business. I have a social media for that. So on Instagram, my handle is KSPT_Kara Shop of Pretty Things. And then I have a Facebook page, which is just Kara Shop of Pretty Things. I have a website, but it's under construction. So I need to do a lot of updating on that. But
you have a lot going on.
I'm around.
Yeah. I'm going to link all of that below. And if your website is done by the time we air this, we can definitely link that below as well. I know you're
cool.
busy. You're going to be busy, though, in the next couple months for sure.
Yeah. That's just how it's going to be.
And that's fine. I mean, you have so many beautiful things on your Instagram. People can definitely take a look there. And you do go to the Troy Farmers Market, right? Almost, was it once a month, or how often are you there?
So I'm done for the summer season. I just finished up. I'm going on my maternity leave.
Yeah.
Just so I can finish prepping for the baby because I'm not ready. But in the winter they move inside. So in November they move the market to an inside location. And while I am recovering, my mom and my sister, here's my village again, right? My mom and my sister, they're like, before holidays is the best time, for any small business sales wise. And they're like, we don't want you to miss out on that. So they're going to do a couple, twice a month, November, twice a month, December, until I can come back.
Oh my God.
And be back at the market myself. So
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, how beautiful. So
I love
you can find, I won't be there November and December, but my stuff and, part of my village will be there.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is really, really cool.
So cool. Well, thank you so much again for sharing all this. This is incredible. And I really hope it pushes people to reach out. I know it's pushing me. I'm like, God, I'm going to start asking my mom for help, even though she's 5 hours away. Virtually babysit my daughter or something.
Right.
All right, Kara. Well, I will talk to you soon. I hope you feel great today and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.